Morning, everyone. Welcome back to Metalworking 101. It's good to see everybody could be here this morning. Well, it's about 9:50, so let's get started. Yeah, come on in, take a seat. Basically, today's class is going to be about how to fabricate a formed part of a piece of sheet metal by blueprint to the print, to the specifications. And basically, 2 classes ago, we discussed safety in the workplace, safe work practices, safe PPE, personal protective equipment, gloves, we have safety glasses, things of that sort. The last class we were building up to the actual laying out of our components, getting us a good stable workplace, neat, clean, organized. And today it gets us to where we are, where we're actually going to take a piece of sheet metal. We're basically going to take a blueprint, the material, the tools, and some of the equipment, and actually form a desired shape based upon our blueprint and the dimensions given. So if anybody doesn't have any questions, the object here is, at a minimum, what I would like to see everyone be able to do by the end of class is basically take a formed piece of sheet metal, look at the print, look at the material, lay it out, and trim the material out. Take the material and form it using a sheet metal brake, and then when it's all said and done, that material should be to the correct shape and correct final dimensions. And that's going to be our goal today. That's going to be our objective. So anyone have any questions about why we need to do this, or does anyone not understand what we're doing this morning? Good, good. I see how you guys are reading the chapters. Again, the importance of this, the who, what, where, when, and why. The importance of this class is to get everyone, to get them implemented into the art of sheet metal working, and most importantly, using blueprints. Blueprints are the backbone. They are the basis for everything that we work with. So, if anybody doesn't have any other questions, let's go ahead and get started. Now, I have, for the sake of you students at home and you students out there in the classroom, I have a blueprint and I have a piece of sheet metal. Now, our blueprint calls for a piece of 1/16 gauge sheet metal, and that's what we have right here. We can use calipers to measure the thickness, and that'll tell us what thickness on our material is. But for the sake of everyone at home and to look at our blueprint, I actually took the time to sketch out our print onto the sheet metal that we're going to be working with. And as you can see, we're looking for a simple shape. We have a 3-dimensional view and we have an end view. If you look, the end view is simply down, over, and down. Pretty basic, pretty simple. A little bit of math involved. We have dimensions here on the 3-dimensional view where it's 3 inches wide, 2 inches tall, 2 inches across, and 2 inches down. So, in a sense, we're going to have one measurement, 3 inches wide, and we're going to total all 3 of these dimensions to give us 2, 4, 6 inches. So this piece of sheet metal will need to be 3 by 6 when we lay it out and trim it out with our snips. Now, we basically, in a sense, as I said, we have a stable, clean, organized, solid workspace, which is critical. Safety. Remember, safety first, always. We verified what materials, according to our print says we need a 1/16 thick sheet of sheet metal, and we have that. Now, if I look here on my bill of materials, that is the only material that is required for this particular job. Now, we've established our overall dimensions, and again, as I can show you here, this is just kind of a blow-up of our overall print. We have a piece that is 3 inches wide, 2 inches tall, 2 inches across, 2 inches down. 2, 4, 6 by 3. So, we've established the material. We've established the size of material. Now, we need to establish some guidelines, some principles. At this point, before we begin to look at some of the hand tools we're going to use, we need to address a couple things. First of all, does anyone have any questions leading up to this point? Good, good. I'm glad to see everybody's awake this morning. So, let's begin with our PPE, our personal protective equipment. First thing, safety glasses. And in this case, whenever working with thin sheet metal, it is always best to wear a pair of gloves. Leather gloves preferably. They will protect your hands against thin cuts. Most of you probably have never experienced a cut on a sharp material, but if you've experienced a paper cut, this is 10 times worse. So I think every one of us has experienced a paper cut at some point in time. Now, to look at some of the tools that we're going to be using for this. First of all, we have our tape measure. Pretty simple. I think everybody at some point or another has used a tape measure. Next, we have what is called a snap punch or scribe. This little gadget right here does 2 functions. You can simply mark a particular point, which I did right here, point to point, or you can use it as a scribe to scratch a line to cut by. It's a handy little tool. Next, we have sheet metal snips. We have the right hand, we have the left hand, or in this case, vice versa. We have green is the right hand, red is the left hand. And you'll know that because that's why they are color coded. So for all you lefties out there, most of us will go with the green. I know I will. Now, once we've established our cut, we get our piece of metal cut out. You usually will have a little bit of a rough edge. What do you do with your rough edge? You file it. You must take a file, and a fine file. This is what you would call a fine file. Makes a smooth edge. So basically, as you take your metal and it's been trimmed, you will take the file down the length of it, sort of with the grain of the material, clean it off, and you have a smooth edge. No jags, no cuts, no scrapes, smooth. And that's what we have to have. Okay. Now, it's time. Let's kind of walk through this thing, if you will. Everybody take your piece of sheet metal that you've been given. For most of you guys, it's a smaller piece there. I'll give you a 1 foot square, which is a 1 by 1. I have a little bit larger piece here. And what we're going to do, I'm going to come around to one corner. We've established, as we said, 3 by 6 are the dimensions of our material. So, I'm going to mark 3 inches with my snap punch. I'm going to mark 3 inches again right here with my snap punch. Now, using our combination square, or some people like to refer to as the tri-square, we can square a straight line based on a 90-degree angle. Very handy little tool. This keeps us square and true. Now we'll take our snap punch and we will scribe us a trim line. This trim line is very tight, very neat, and should result in a much, much more accurate cut. Now, let me show you here. If you look from this edge to our scribe line, is 3 inches. So we've established the 3 inches. The next thing we want to do is get our overall length. And we determined that that was 6 inches. And I'll show you again how we got that. We go 2, 2, and 2. Now on thicker material, I'll go ahead and tell you this. On thicker material, you can double the thickness of the material, and you'll need to build that into the overall length. Because as you bend, the material stretches. So you need to have to take that into consideration of the overall length. Now on the thinner material, you can simply just add up all 3 angles, 4, however many, and you shouldn't experience much of the stretch shrink effect. So your measurement should still be true, well within tolerance. So we said we needed 6 inches. Take my little handy snap punch. There it is. We'll take our tri-square or combination square. We'll scribe us a new line. Wipe away the excess. And as you can see, we now have a 3 by 6 inch piece. Now, everybody up with me so far? Everybody have everything marked? Any questions? Right. You can use a Sharpie. You can use other different instruments to mark your line. The thing that I like the most about this, it serves 2 functions. The snap punch puts a small indentation, and it puts a much finer line. Not nearly as wide as, say, the more famous Sharpie. The Sharpie is a great tool. I use it. I drew this sketch out on the sheet metal with the Sharpie, but for more accuracy, I prefer the snap punch. Now, where are we at now? Can anybody tell me? That's right. We're to the fun part. For all you lefties, you're going to want to grab the red. For all you right-handed, we need to grab the green. Now, these pin snips are sort of like using scissors. They're spring-loaded, as you can see. Very easy to use. Not complex at all. Now, what I'm going to want to do, just for everybody at home who's watching, I'm not going to trim right on that line. Not yet. What I want to do is simply go probably a ½ inch up and around it. And I'm going to switch to the left-hand snips for just a moment. Now, as you can see, we do not have a perfectly straight line. And the reason for that is you're cutting against the majority of this material, so it's a lot more difficult to keep a straighter edge. So if you have little to no excess hanging off the edge, you can trim a much straighter line. And that's what we're going to do right now. I'm going to go back with the green snips for me. And for all my left-handed students, you're going to want to use the red ones. And you're going to want to stay right on that line. Right on the line. There's one side. And get lined up here. Don't see as well as I used to. Now, as you can see, a much precise cut there. So, what do we want to do? Well, we discussed the snips, we discussed the tape measure, the snap punch, the combination square, and we discussed the file. Here's where the file comes in. A little bit of roughness in certain areas. So, let's start down 1 inch. We'll learn